Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the massive hallways of the Galactic Council building. Her shoes clicked on the smooth metal floor as she made her way to the main chamber. The walls were covered with strange symbols from dozens of alien worlds. Giant windows showed the busy spaceport outside, where ships from across the galaxy came and went like metal birds. Sarah had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. Every day, she came to these meetings and played the same game. She pretended that humans were weak and simple. She acted like Earth was grateful for the Council's protection. She smiled and nodded when the alien leaders talked down to her like she was a child. But it was all an act. The council chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up to the ceiling. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in those seats. The most powerful one sat at the bottom, closest to the center. Sarah's seat was near the back, where they put the lesser species. Counselor Vextar stood at the center podium. He was a hegemony warrior, tall and covered in dark scales. His red eyes glowed as he spoke about trade routes and military patrols. The hegemony controlled the largest fleet in known space, or so everyone thought. The humans have requested permission to build 3 more ships, Vextar announced. His voice was deep and rough. This seems excessive for such a primitive species. Sarah stood up slowly. Honorable Counselor, Earth only wishes to protect our trade ships. Pirates have been attacking our cargo vessels. Vextar made a sound like a laugh. 3 ships should be more than enough for your needs. The Council will provide additional protection if required. Sarah bowed her head. Thank you for your wisdom. She sat back down, hiding her anger. The Council had been limiting human ship production since first contact. They said it was for everyone's safety. Really, they wanted to keep humans weak and dependent. After the meeting, Sarah walked to her private office. The walls were covered with pictures of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, and white clouds. She missed home, but this job was too important. She touched a hidden panel, and a secure communication screen appeared. Report, said a voice from the screen. Another denial, Sarah replied. They approved 3 ships instead of the 12 we requested. The face on the screen belonged to Admiral Marcus Rivera. He was sitting in what looked like a military command center. Banks of computers and screens surrounded him. Officers in dark uniforms worked at control stations. Perfect, Marcus said. The more they underestimate us, the better. Sarah nodded. How are the real projects going? Marcus smiled. Shipyard 7 finished another dreadnought yesterday. That makes 43 completed this month. The stealth systems are working perfectly. Council sensors can't detect anything. And the mining operations? All proceeding as planned. The Council thinks we're just digging for metals and rare minerals. They have no idea we're building the largest military complex in galactic history. Sarah felt a mix of pride and worry. For 3 years, humanity had been building a secret fleet. Every mining station in human space was actually a hidden shipyard. Every research facility was a weapons development center. Every cargo ship that left Earth carried military, supplies, and personnel. The plan had started before first contact. Human scientists had found ancient alien ships floating dead in space near the edge of the solar system. The ships were millions of years old, from a civilization that no longer existed. But their technology was far beyond anything the current galactic powers possessed. Human engineers had spent decades studying those ships. They learned about faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and weapons that could crack planets. More importantly, they learned about stealth technology that could hide entire fleets from enemy sensors. When the Galactic Council finally discovered Earth, humanity was ready. They hid their real capabilities and pretended to be a young, weak species. The Council welcomed them with false smiles and secret plans to exploit human resources and labor. Any word from the Outer Rim Scouts? Sarah asked. Marcus's face grew serious. Yes, and it's not good news. Long-range sensors are picking up movement in the dead zone. Something big is stirring out there. Sarah felt a chill. The dead zones were areas of space where entire star systems had gone silent. No one knew what had happened to the civilizations that once lived there. The Council claimed it was natural disasters or civil wars, but human scouts had found evidence of something much worse. How much time do we have? Hard to say, could be months, could be years, but when it comes, the Council won't be ready. Sarah looked at the pictures of Earth on her wall. Billions of humans lived there, going about their daily lives. They had no idea that their planet was surrounded by alien powers who saw them as useful animals. They also had no idea that their government was building the most powerful military force in the galaxy to protect them. Keep building, Sarah said, and keep it secret. Marcus nodded. The day will come when we have to reveal ourselves. When that happens, The galaxy will never be the same. Sarah ended the call and looked out her office window. In the distance, she could see hegemony warships patrolling the space around the council station. They were impressive vessels, covered in armor and bristling with weapons. The crews probably felt invincible. They had no idea that hidden in the asteroid fields of human space, ships twice their size waited in the darkness. Ships with weapons that could punch through any known armor. Ships with shields that could absorb the full power of a star. Ships crewed by humans who had studied every weakness of every alien military force. The next day brought another council session. This time the topic was trade agreements. The Ethereals wanted to increase taxes on human goods. The Trade Confederation supported them, seeing an opportunity to squeeze more profit from Earth's resources. Humans produce excellent raw materials, said Zephyr 9, the ethereal representative. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. But their manufacturing capabilities are limited. Higher taxes will encourage them to focus on what they do best. Sarah listened to them talk about humanity like they were discussing livestock. The council members divided up human trade routes and decided which alien corporations would get the best deals. They spoke about Earth's future as if humans had no say in the matter. Ambassador Chen, Vextar called out. Do the humans accept these new terms? Sarah stood up. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. Representatives from species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years waited for her response. They expected her to thank them for their generous offer. Earth accepts the wisdom of the council, Sarah said with a smile. Vextar nodded, approvingly. Excellent. It pleases me to see that humans understand their place in the galactic community. After the session, several council members approached Sarah. They made small talk and asked about Earth's culture. They seemed friendly, but Sarah could see the calculation in their eyes. They were measuring humanity's usefulness and planning how to exploit it. Your species shows promise, said Trade Confederation leader Moxtal. His forearms gestured as he spoke. Perhaps in a few hundred years, humans might be ready for greater responsibilities. We are honored by your confidence, Sarah replied. That night Sarah sent her daily report to Admiral Rivera. The message was hidden inside routine diplomatic communications. To anyone monitoring, it looked like boring bureaucratic paperwork. In reality, it contained detailed intelligence about council military movements, political divisions, and strategic weaknesses. As Sarah prepared for bed, she thought about the game she was playing. Every day she pretended to be weak, while humanity grew stronger. Every smile she gave to condescending aliens was a mask hiding humanity's true face. Every bow she made to the council was really a promise of what was coming. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, ancient enemies were stirring. When they finally revealed themselves, the council would learn what humans were really capable of. Until then, Sarah would keep playing her role, counting down the days until the mask could finally come off. The alarm started screaming at 3 a.m, council station time. Sarah Chen woke up in her small apartment near the diplomatic quarter. Red lights flashed outside her window and the floor vibrated under her feet. She had never heard these alarms before, but she knew what they meant. Emergency protocols, all hands alert. Something very bad was happening. Her communication device buzzed with an urgent message. All ambassadors report to the emergency chamber immediately. Sarah dressed quickly and ran through the corridors of the council station. Aliens from dozens of species rushed past her, their faces showing fear and confusion. Security guards in heavy armor directed traffic at major intersections. The normally calm and orderly station had become chaos. The emergency chamber was smaller than the main council hall designed for crisis meetings. When Sarah arrived, most of the other ambassadors were already there. They whispered to each other in different languages, trying to figure out what was happening. Counselor Vextar burst through the main doors. His dark scales looked almost black in the emergency lighting, and his red eyes burned with anger and fear. Behind him came the other senior council members, ethereal Zephyr 9 floating above the ground, and Trade Confederation leader Moxtal, with his forearms crossed. We are under attack, Vextar announced without introduction. The room fell silent. 20 minutes ago, our border stations in the Kepler corridor went dark. All of them. 17 military outposts, 3 major bases, and 2 entire star systems. Gone. Sarah felt her heart racing, but she kept her face calm. She had been expecting this day for months. Who is attacking us? Asked Ambassador Krill from the Aquatic Republic. Vextar's jaw tightened. The Devourers. The word hit the chamber like a bomb. Several ambassadors gasped. Others made sounds of fear in their own languages. Sarah had read about the Devourers in classified human intelligence reports, but seeing the Council's reaction made her realize how serious this was. "That's impossible," said Zephyr 9, her wind chime voice shaking. "The Devourers were destroyed 1,000 years ago." "Apparently not," Vextar replied. "Our deep space sensors show a fleet approaching through the corridor. Preliminary counts suggest over 3,000 vessels." Sarah did quick math in her head. The entire Council military had maybe 1,500 ships spread across dozens of sectors. If the enemy had 3,000 ships in a single fleet, the numbers didn't look good. "What do we know about their capabilities?" asked Ambassador Threx from the Mining Guild. "They're using ships we don't recognize," Moxtal answered. "Our sensor data shows vessels that adapt their design during combat. They learn from our attacks and modify their defenses in real time. The Devourers were a cybernetic species, part machine and part living tissue. They had conquered dozens of star systems before disappearing into the dark regions of space. The Council had convinced everyone that they were gone forever. Clearly, they had been wrong. "What are our defense options?" Sarah asked. Vextar looked at her with something between surprise and annoyance. He probably wasn't used to questions from primitive species during important meetings. "We are mobilizing every available ship," he said. "All member worlds must contribute their military forces to the common defense." This was it, the moment Sarah had been preparing for. "How many ships can Earth provide?" Zephyr 9 asked. Sarah pretended to think about it. "We have perhaps 12 vessels that could be useful in combat. They're not very advanced, but our crews are brave." Vextar nodded dismissively. "Every ship helps, no matter how small." The meeting continued for another hour. Military leaders explained their strategy, which seemed to involve throwing everything they had at the enemy and hoping for the best. Sarah took notes and asked appropriate questions, playing the role of a concerned but helpless ambassador. When the meeting ended, she hurried back to her apartment and activated her secure communication system. Admiral Rivera's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Sarah could see intense activity in the command center. Officers ran between stations and display screens showed tactical information. "We've been monitoring Council communications," Rivera said before Sarah could speak. "The Devourer fleet is bigger than they're telling you. Our long-range sensors show at least 5,000 ships, maybe more. Can the Council stop them?" Rivera shook his head. "Not a chance. Their military doctrine is completely wrong for this kind of enemy. They're planning to meet the Devourers in open battle, ship against ship. But the Devourers don't fight that way. They swarm, they adapt, and they never stop coming." Sarah felt sick. If the Council fell, Earth would be next. All of humanity's preparations would be useless if they faced the enemy alone. "What about our fleet?" "Ready for deployment. All shipyards are operating at maximum capacity. We have over 15,000 vessels prepared for combat, with more being completed every day." Sarah did a double take. 15,000? I thought we had 5,000 ships. Rivera smiled grimly. "We've been busy. The secret construction projects in the outer asteroid fields are paying off. We also finished reverse engineering the ancient alien technology. Our ships now have capabilities that would surprise even us." Over the next few hours, reports came in from the battle zone. They were not good reports. The Devourer fleet had smashed through the Council's outer defenses like they were made of paper. The mechanical ships adapted to every weapon fired at them. Energy beams that worked in the first battle became useless in the second as the enemy modified their shields. Missile systems that destroyed dozens of ships in one engagement suddenly found their targets immune to the same attacks. Vexitar called another emergency meeting at midday. This time his scales were pale gray instead of dark black. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 hours. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly," he announced. "We have lost contact with the entire 5th Fleet. The 7th and 9th Fleets are retreating to defensive positions around the Nexus system." "How long until they reach Council space?" asked Ambassador Krill. "At their current speed, perhaps 18 hours. Sarah watched the faces around the room. These were representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They commanded vast fleets and controlled entire sectors of space. Now they looked terrified. "We need every ship available," Vextar continued. "I'm ordering all member worlds to send their complete military forces to the defense of Nexus Prime." "What if our home worlds are attacked while our fleets are gone?" asked Ambassador Threx. "If Nexus Prime falls, There will be no homeworlds. To defend, Zephyr 9 replied quietly. The meeting broke up with everyone rushing to contact their governments. Sarah waited until she was alone, then activated her communication device. The time has come, she told Admiral Rivera. Are you sure? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. Sarah looked out her window at the council station. In the distance, she could see hegemony warships preparing for battle. Their crews probably thought they were about to fight for the survival of civilization. They had no idea that help was coming from the species they considered barely above animals. I'm sure, Sarah said. Activate the fleet. Rivera nodded. All ships, all battle groups, full deployment. Everything we have. It'll take 6 hours for the fleet to reach combat positions. The council is going to get quite a surprise. Sarah smiled for the first time in days. I think the Devourers will be surprised too. As night fell over the council station, Sarah stood at her window watching the stars. Somewhere out there, 15,000 human warships were moving through space toward the greatest battle in galactic history. Ships built with technology that no living species understood. Ships crewed by humans who had studied every aspect of Devourer tactics and weaknesses. The council thought they were facing their darkest hour. They had no idea they were about to witness humanity's finest moment. The masquerade was almost over. Soon, the galaxy would learn what humans could do when they stopped pretending to be harmless. The council war room buzzed with desperate activity. Giant screens covered every wall, showing the battle happening light years away. Sarah watched from her assigned seat as red dots representing Devourer ships moved deeper into council territory. The blue dots of the Galactic Defense Fleet were disappearing one by one. Councillor Vextar stood at the main tactical display, his scaled hands clenched into fists. His red eyes darted between different screens as reports flooded in from the front lines. 7th Fleet is down to 30% strength, announced a military aide. Admiral Corax is requesting permission to retreat to the secondary defense line. Denied, Vextar growled. Every minute we hold them gives our reinforcements more time to arrive. Sarah knew the reinforcements wouldn't be enough. The council had managed to gather about 800 ships from various member worlds. The Devourer fleet now numbered over 6,000 vessels, and they were still adapting to every tactic the council tried. Sir? Another aide called out. The ethereal energy weapons have stopped working completely. The Devourers developed immunity after the third engagement. Zephyr 9 floated beside the main display, her normally calm demeanor replaced by obvious distress. This is impossible. Those weapons took us centuries to develop. The Devourers learn from everything, Vextar replied bitterly. Every shot we fire teaches them how to defend against the next one. Sarah had been studying the tactical displays for hours. The human intelligence reports had been accurate. The Devourers weren't just another military force. They were a collective intelligence that treated war like a science experiment. They would sacrifice hundreds of ships to learn how a new weapon worked, then make their entire fleet immune to it. How long until they reach Nexus Prime? Asked Trade Confederation leader Moxtal. At current speed, 14 hours, replied the chief tactical officer. The room fell silent. Nexus Prime was the heart of galactic civilization. If it fell, the entire council structure would collapse. Trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds would be left defenseless. We need a miracle, someone whispered. Sarah stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned to her. She was about to change the course of galactic history. Honorable counselors, she said in a calm voice. Earth would like to contribute more to the defense effort. Vextar looked at her with confusion and annoyance. Ambassador Chen, we appreciate your species' willingness to help, but 12 primitive ships won't change anything. Sarah smiled. I wasn't talking about 12 ships. She activated her personal communication device and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Admiral Rivera, you are cleared for fleet deployment. All battle groups full authorization. The voice that answered came through the room's speakers, loud and clear. Confirmed, Ambassador. All ships moving to combat positions. Estimated arrival. Time at the battle zone, 47 minutes. Vexitar stared at Sarah. What is this? What ships? Instead of answering, Sarah walked to the main tactical display. She input her authorization codes and activated a hidden sensor network that had been placed throughout council space over the past 3 years. The screens around the room suddenly filled with new contacts. Thousands of them. The tactical officer, monitoring the sensors, made a choking sound. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the outer system. Unknown vessel types, unknown technology signatures. How many? Vextar demanded. The officer's hands shook as he worked his controls. I count, sir. This can't be right. How many? Vextar roared. 15,347 vessels, sir. The room exploded into chaos. Ambassadors shouted questions in dozens of languages. Military officers ran between control stations, trying to verify the impossible sensor readings. Zephyr 9 dropped from her floating position and actually touched the ground for the first time Sarah had ever seen. This is impossible, Vextar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Humans don't have 15,000 ships. You're barely a spacefaring species. Sarah walked to the center of the room. For 3 years, she had stood quietly in the background, while alien leaders made decisions about humanity's future. Now it was time to speak as an equal. Counselor Vextar, there are many things about humans that you don't understand. The main screen changed to show Admiral Rivera's command center. The human officer looked directly at Vextar with steady, confident eyes. This is Admiral Marcus Rivera, commanding the Terran Defense Fleet. We are here to assist in the defense of Council space. Where did these ships come from? Zephyr 9 demanded. Her wind chime voice was high and strained. Sarah had been waiting 3 years to answer this question. From Earth, from human shipyards, from the mining stations and research facilities you thought were so primitive. Impossible, Moxtal said, his forearms waving frantically. We monitored your industrial capacity. You couldn't build more than a few dozen ships per year. You monitored what we wanted you to see, Sarah replied calmly. Every mining station in human space contained hidden shipyards. Every research facility was developing new military technology. Every cargo transport carried weapons and supplies to our secret bases. On the main screen, Admiral Rivera continued his report. We have 150 battle groups positioned throughout the sector. Each group contains approximately 100 vessels of various classes. The tactical officer was frantically updating his displays. Sir, the energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. These ships are using technology we don't recognize. Sarah nodded. We've had some time to study advanced alien technology, ships we found drifting in deep space, left behind by civilizations that existed before the Council was formed. Vextar's scales had turned completely white. You've been lying to us for 3 years. We've been protecting ourselves, Sarah corrected. Every species that joins the Council gets limited and controlled. You decide how many ships they can build, what technology they can develop, where they can expand. You turn them into dependent client states. For the good of galactic stability, Zephyr 9 protested. For the good of the ruling species, Sarah shot back. Humans studied galactic history before we made contact. We learned what happened to every emerging civilization. Conquest, control, or exploitation. We decided on a different path. The screens around the room showed the human fleet, moving into position. The ships were massive, sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them. Their weapon signatures were completely unknown to Council sensors. How did you hide all this? Moxtal asked. Admiral Rivera answered from the main screen. Stealth, technology adapted from ancient alien designs. Your sensors can detect our ships only when we want them to. This changes everything, Vextar said slowly. The balance of power. The balance of power has already changed, Sarah interrupted. It changed the moment humanity developed faster than light travel. You just didn't know it yet. A new alarm sounded in the war room. The tactical officer called out, The Devourer. Fleet has detected the human ships. They're changing course to intercept. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. This was the moment of truth. All of humanity's preparations, all of their secret development, would be tested against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Admiral Rivera, she said formally, you have permission to engage the enemy. Rivera nodded. Understood, Ambassador. All ships, this is Admiral Rivera. The mission is simple. Stop the Devourers from reaching Council space. Show them what humans can do when we stop hiding. On the tactical displays, 15,000 human ships began moving toward the approaching Devourer fleet. For the first time in the battle, the Council forces weren't retreating. Vextar looked at Sarah with a mixture of respect and fear. Your species has been planning this for a long time. Since the day we realized we weren't alone in the universe, Sarah confirmed. We hoped we would never need to reveal ourselves, but the galaxy is facing a threat that requires unity, not politics. And after the battle? Zephyr 9 asked quietly. What happens to the Council? What happens to the established order? Sarah looked around the room at the representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had treated humanity as a minor annoyance, a source of cheap labor and raw materials. Now they were realizing that the balance of power had shifted completely. That depends, Sarah said, on whether you're willing to accept that humans are no longer your junior partners. The screens showed the two fleets approaching each other. The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin, and humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows. The masquerade was over. The galaxy would never be the same. The space between the two fleets lit up like a new star as the first shots were fired. Sarah watched the main tactical display as 15,000 human ships engaged 6,000 Devourer vessels. Unlike the chaotic battles the Council had been fighting, the human fleet moved with perfect coordination. They didn't charge straight at the enemy like the Council forces had been doing. Interesting, Counselor Vextar said, his red eyes fixed on the display. Your ships aren't attacking directly. Sarah nodded. Humans don't believe in fair fights. We believe in winning. On the screen, the human fleet had spread out into dozens of smaller groups. Some ships seemed to disappear completely from sensors, while others created false energy signatures to confuse the enemy. The Devourers had expected another head-on assault like the Council had been attempting. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't properly track. Admiral. Rivera's voice came through the communication system. Battle Group 7, initiate Phase 1. Target the command nodes. Sarah had studied the battle plans with human military leaders. Unlike other species, humans had spent months analyzing captured Devourer technology. They had learned that the mechanical fleet operated through central command ships that coordinated the smaller vessels. The first wave of human attacks focused on these command ships. But instead of using conventional weapons that the Devourers could adapt to, the humans used something completely different. What are those weapons? Asked Zephyr 9, staring at the display in confusion. I don't recognize the energy signatures. Virus bombs, Sarah replied. Computer programs designed to infect Devourer networks and corrupt their data systems. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded one of the human attack squadrons. Her ship, the Indomitable, was leading an assault on a massive Devourer command vessel. Instead of firing energy beams or launching missiles, her ship released clouds of microscopic machines that attached themselves to the enemy hull. Nanobots, Sarah explained as the Council leaders watched in fascination. They carry computer viruses directly into the Devourer systems. The effect was immediate. The targeted command ship began moving erratically, firing its weapons at random, targets including its own fleet. Other Devourer ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly broke ranks and started attacking each other. Remarkable, said Trade Confederation leader Moxtal. You're turning their unity against them. The battle continued for hours. The human fleet used tactics that no galactic military had ever seen. Some ships would suddenly appear behind enemy lines, having used experimental tunneling technology to bypass normal space. Others projected holographic duplicates of themselves, making the Devourers waste ammunition on targets that didn't exist. But the most impressive aspect was the coordination. Every human ship seemed to know exactly what every other human ship was doing. They moved like parts of a single organism, adapting their strategies in real time based on enemy responses. How are they communicating so effectively? Asked Ambassador Krill. The time delay should make this level of coordination impossible, Sarah smiled. Quantum communication networks, instantaneous data transfer across any distance. Vextar was studying the tactical display with the eye of an experienced military leader. Your species has been preparing for this specific enemy. We've been preparing for any enemy, Sarah corrected. But yes, we studied the Devourer threat extensively. We had advance warning that they were returning. The tide of battle began to turn when Captain Vasquez's ship successfully penetrated the main Devourer command vessel. Using phase shift technology, the Indomitable passed through the enemy's shields like they weren't there. This is Captain Vasquez, her voice crackled through the communication system. I'm inside the primary command structure, beginning virus deployment. On the main screen, they could see the captain's ship moving through the interior of the massive Devourer vessel. The mechanical ship was the size of a small moon, filled with processing centers and data networks that coordinated thousands of other vessels. Captain, you have multiple enemy contacts converging on your position, Admiral Rivera's voice warned. Copy that, Admiral. Initiating close quarters protocol. Sarah watched as human marines in advanced armor fought their way through the alien ship. Unlike the Council species, humans had developed tactics for boarding actions and ship-to-ship combat. The Marines moved through the Devourer vessel like they had trained for this exact scenario, which in fact they had. Virus deployment successful, Captain Vasquez reported. The Cascade program is active. The effects spread through the Devourer fleet like a disease. Ships that had been perfectly coordinated began making random movements. Some stopped firing entirely while others turned their weapons on nearby vessels. The mechanical precision that had made them so dangerous was breaking down. Incredible, Zephyr 9 whispered. You've found a way to disrupt their collective consciousness. Every system has weaknesses, Sarah replied. You just have to be willing to study them long enough to find them. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Battle groups that had been conducting hit-and-run attacks suddenly switched to direct and assault mode. Ships that had been invisible to sensors revealed themselves and opened fire with weapons the Devourers had never encountered. What are those energy readings? The tactical officer asked, staring at his instruments in confusion. Directed antimatter streams, Admiral Rivera answered. We call them reality erasers. They don't just destroy matter, they remove it from existence. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, was falling apart. Ships drifted without power as their computer systems crashed. Others exploded as their own weapons turned inward. The virus Captain Vasquez had deployed was spreading through their communication networks, corrupting every system it touched. But the Devourers weren't giving up. The surviving ships began to adapt, cutting themselves off from the infected networks. They reverted to individual operation, sacrificing coordination for immunity to the virus. They're learning, Vextar observed. Just like they did with our weapons. We expected that, Sarah said calmly. Admiral, initiate Phase 2. The human fleet formation changed again. Ships that had been working in large groups broke down into smaller units. Each unit began using different tactics and different weapons, making it impossible for the Devourers to develop universal defenses. Some human ships used gravity weapons that crushed enemy vessels like empty cans. Others deployed energy nets that drained power from Devourer systems. A few released swarms of robotic fighters that were too small and too numerous for the enemy to target effectively. How many different weapon systems do you have? Moxtal asked in amazement. 237 primary types with thousands of variations, Admiral Rivera replied. Every ship in our fleet carries different armaments. The enemy can't adapt to all of them at once. The battle was becoming a rout. The Devourer fleet, which had numbered 6,000 ships at the start of the engagement, was down to less than 2,000 functional vessels. Many of those were damaged or operating with reduced capability. Captain Vasquez's voice came through, the speakers again. Admiral, I've reached the central processing core. I'm seeing something you need to know about. Report, Captain. This isn't just a command ship, sir. It's a production facility. They've been building more ships during the battle. Sarah felt her blood run cold. If the Devourers could replace their losses faster than the humans could destroy them, the battle would never end. How many new ships? Admiral Rivera asked. Hard to say, sir, but I'm reading construction bays that could hold hundreds of vessels. The council leaders were listening to every word. Vextar's scales had turned pale again. If they can build new ships during combat, then we need to stop the production, Sarah finished. Captain Vasquez, can you destroy the construction facilities? Negative, Ambassador, but I might be able to do something better. I'm uploading a new virus variant directly into their manufacturing systems. What will that do? Zephyr 9 asked. Captain Vasquez's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Instead of building more warships, they'll start building garbage, defective systems, faulty weapons, broken engines. They'll think they're reinforcing their fleet, but they'll actually be adding dead weight. The plan worked perfectly. Over the next hour, the Devourer command ship began launching new vessels. But instead of joining the battle, the new ships immediately began experiencing system failures. Some exploded moments after launch. Others drifted helplessly as their engines failed to start. Brilliant, Vextar admitted grudgingly. You turned their own manufacturing capability against them. The remaining Devourer ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet had surrounded them completely. Ships that tried to flee found their escape. Routes blocked by invisible vessels that suddenly became visible just long enough to fire devastating volleys. The enemy fleet is broken, Admiral Rivera announced. All remaining vessels are either destroyed, disabled, or fleeing the sector. The war room fell silent. The largest space battle in galactic history was over, and humanity had won decisively. Sarah looked around at the council leaders. These were beings who had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. They commanded vast fleets and ruled entire sectors of space. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after the battle, but this time everything was different. Sarah Chen walked into the main chamber and took her seat at the center of the room, in the spot traditionally reserved for the most powerful species. Counselor Vexitar, Ethereal Zephyr 9, and Trade Confederation leader Moxital sat in the outer rings, where lesser powers usually placed their representatives. The reversal wasn't lost on anyone. The chair recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth, announced the session moderator, his voice respectful in a way it had never been before. Sarah stood and looked around the chamber. Representatives from hundreds of worlds stared back at her. Some faces showed fear, others displayed curiosity. All of them showed respect. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Sarah began. We are here to discuss the future of our shared galaxy. For 3 years, Sarah had sat quietly while alien leaders made decisions about humanity's fate. They had limited human expansion, controlled human trade, and treated Earth as a resource to be exploited. Now those same leaders waited for her words like students waiting for a teacher. 3 days ago, we faced an enemy that threatened every civilized world, Sarah continued. The Devourer fleet would have consumed entire star systems if left unchecked. Working together, we stopped them. Vextar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ambassador Chen, we must address the obvious question. Your species has been deceiving the Council for 3 years. How can we trust anything you say now? Sarah had been expecting this question. Counselor Vexitar, let me ask you something. When Earth first made contact with the galaxy, what was your plan for humanity? Vexitar's red eyes narrowed. We intended to integrate your species into the galactic community. Under whose terms? Sarah pressed. Under terms that would ensure stability and order. Terms that would keep humans weak and dependent, Sarah corrected. Terms that would prevent us from developing our own military forces or expanding beyond a handful of systems. Terms that would make us perpetual clients of more powerful species. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew Sarah was right. We studied galactic history before making contact, Sarah explained. We learned what happened to every emerging species over the past 2,000 years. The lucky ones became junior partners with limited rights. The unlucky ones became slave worlds or were conquered outright. Zephyr 9 floated higher above her seat. That's an unfair characterization. The Council maintains order and prevents wars. The Council maintains control, Sarah replied firmly. You prevent wars by making sure no one can challenge the established powers. Every new species gets the same treatment. Limited fleet sizes, restricted technology, controlled expansion. Sarah activated a holographic display that showed the galactic political structure. The core worlds controlled by the Council powers were highlighted in blue. Client species territories were shown in yellow. Restricted zones and forbidden sectors appeared in red. Look at this map, Sarah said. The same species that founded the Council still control the most valuable systems. Every species that joined later got pushed to the edges, limited to whatever scraps the founders didn't want. That's how civilizations grow, Moxtel protested, his forearms gesturing frantically. Older species naturally develop more advanced territories. No, Sarah replied. That's how empires work. And humanity decided we wouldn't be part of your empire. The display changed to show the real extent of human space. Instead of the handful of systems the Council thought humans controlled, the map revealed a vast network of hidden bases, secret shipyards, and advanced research facilities. We spent 3 years building what you see now, Sarah explained. Not because we wanted to conquer anyone, but because we refused to be conquered ourselves. Admiral Rivera's image appeared on the main screen. He was still in his command center, coordinating the human fleet that now patrolled the outer sectors. The current situation is simple, Rivera said. Humanity has the largest and most advanced military force in known space. We can destroy any existing fleet, defend any system, and project power across the entire galaxy. The implications hung in the air like a sword. Every council member understood that the balance of power had shifted completely. So what do you want? Vextar asked quietly. Sarah had been preparing for this moment for years. We want a new agreement, one based on equality instead of domination. She activated another display that showed her proposed changes to the galactic government structure. No more restrictions on fleet sizes based on species age or council seniority. No more mandatory limits on territorial expansion. No more technology sharing requirements that only go one direction. You're talking about dismantling the entire system, Zephyr 9 said, her voice shaking. I'm talking about fixing it, Sarah corrected. The current system worked when the biggest threat was wars between council members, but the Devourers proved that external threats require unity, not control. The new proposal was radical. Instead of a hierarchy based on historical power, the galaxy would be protected by a collective defense agreement. Species would contribute to common security based on their capabilities, not their political status. Trade and expansion would be regulated by economic factors, not political ones. This would mean the end of council dominance, Moxtal observed. It would mean the beginning of galactic cooperation, Sarah replied. The old system was already breaking down. The Devourers would have destroyed it completely if we hadn't intervened. Over the following hours, Sarah outlined humanity's vision for the future. Human ships would patrol trade routes and respond to threats, but they wouldn't conquer or control other species. The advanced technology humans had developed would be shared gradually, allowing other civilizations to strengthen their own defenses. But there would be conditions. Any species that attacks another member of the galactic community will face the full power of the Terran Defense Fleet, Admiral Rivera explained. We won't tolerate conquest, slavery, or genocide. And if we refuse your proposal? Vextar asked. Sarah looked directly at him. Then you're free to try maintaining the old system without human participation. But when the next crisis comes, and there will be a next crisis, you'll face it alone. The choice was clear. Accept humanity's leadership and benefit from their protection, or reject it and face an uncertain future without their most powerful military force. The debate continued for days. Some species supported the new arrangement immediately, seeing it as an opportunity for growth and expansion they had been denied for centuries. Others resisted, unwilling to give up the privileges they had enjoyed as council members. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. The new Galactic Compact was signed, exactly 1 week after the Battle of Kepler Corridor. Instead of a council dominated by ancient powers, the galaxy would be governed by a representative assembly, where every species had a voice. Instead of restricted client states, all members would have the right to expand and develop according to their capabilities. And instead of relying on political balance to prevent conflicts, the galaxy would be protected by the Terran Defense Fleet. Sarah stood in the observation deck of the new assembly building, looking out at the stars. Ships from dozens of species moved through space nearby, but the largest vessels bore the blue and white colors of Earth. Admiral Rivera joined her at the observation window. Any regrets about revealing ourselves? Sarah shook her head. We couldn't hide forever, and the galaxy needed to change. The other species are still adjusting to the new reality, Rivera observed. Some of them are having trouble accepting that humans are no longer the junior partners. They'll adjust, Sarah said confidently. They don't have much choice. A communication alert chimed and Rivera checked his personal device. Interesting news from the Outer Rim. Our deep space scouts found something. More Devourers? No. Ancient ruins on a dead world near the edge of the galaxy. The archaeological team thinks they might be human in origin. Sarah turned to look at him. How old? Preliminary dating suggests 50,000 years, maybe more. Sarah felt a chill. If humans had once lived in this galaxy before developing spaceflight on Earth, it would explain many things. The ease with which they had adapted ancient alien technology, the instinctive understanding of galactic politics, the feeling that this was not humanity's first encounter with interstellar civilization. Keep me informed about the excavation, Sarah said. She turned back to the observation window and watched human ships patrol the space lanes. The galaxy was safer now than it had been in centuries. The threat of the Devourers had been eliminated, and the new governmental structure would prevent the kinds of conflicts that had weakened civilization for millennia. But Sarah suspected this was only the beginning. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy and taken on the responsibility of protecting it. They had proven that they were more than capable of handling that responsibility. The question now was what other secrets the galaxy might hold, and what other challenges humanity would face as its reluctant guardians. In the distance, a human dreadnought completed its patrol route and jumped to hyperspace, heading for the Outer Rim where ancient mysteries waited to be uncovered. The age of human dominance had begun, but Sarah had a feeling that the greatest revelations were still to come.